Hello, everyone listening to Actively Autistic. I'm Admin G, and I'm currently the only one recording right now for this episode. Something hit me today. It's 10:10 p.m. or 22:10 for those on 24-hour time, and it is February 11th, 2020. I'm having a difficult day right now. 2020 started off as a great year for me. I'm in a much better place mentally, emotionally, even financially. I have an amazing boyfriend who's been my best friend for 6.5 years now and who is just extremely supportive. Now, as you all know, my mission with Actively Autistic and as a college girl is to kind of bring awareness and education to other people about autism and other disabilities as well. Just so that way we can also function in a very normal world. But what is normal? No one knows that. No one knows for sure, though everybody uses it. So, yesterday was, to give you guys a little bit of background, this will be unedited, by the way, so please excuse me. Yesterday was my final session with my counselor. I am getting ready to be discharged from counseling, and let me tell you, it is so exciting. It's an amazing feeling to be able to say, look at how far I've gone. Look at everything that I've done. I started counseling back in January of 2018 at my community college, and it was free because I was a student. And then I went over to, when I graduated from my community college, I could no longer see that specific counselor. So she sent me a recommendation to a friend of hers, and they work within the same company or whatever you call it. And I got to set up with her, I think a couple of years ago now. No, last year, 2019. January 2019 is when I started to see her, I believe. And so technically I've been in counseling for about 3 years now, and back in October or November, she said, I think you're getting ready for discharge. I think you're getting ready to be able to move on. And at the time, that thought absolutely terrified me. I thought, what am I going to do? My sessions with her weren't constant. They weren't weekly or even bi-weekly, but every few months I would meet with her. And before my first counselor, Becky, I would meet with her weekly to bi-weekly, depending on the schedule. And I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't know. I'm scared. But as the months passed on and as I started to realize that everything that I've been taught these past 3 years on how to manage my anxiety and to kind of ground myself and everything like that, I realized that I'm going to be okay. So yesterday was a very exciting day for me. I'm not discharged yet because I have to talk to my PCP about taking over my medication. And if you guys are curious, I take escitalopram, which is also known as Lexapro, and it's an anxiety medication. And I've taken it for about, I think, a year now, if not a year and a half, something like that. My years are mixed up because it's a new year, but it's amazing. I love not feeling so anxious that I could hardly function anymore. I love not being able to be afraid to go out to like the mall and hang out with my friends, which is a very rare occurrence, by the way. The mall, not my friends. Um, or, just do simple stuff. I got into Pokemon a couple of years ago, Pokemon Go, and going to community day was absolutely overwhelming, over the top. And even in a wide open space, like at the park that I went to, I still got extremely claustrophobic and I would shut down multiple times throughout however long I was there, which was typically for a few hours. And after starting Lexapro, it took a while, of course, because not all medications work fast like that. But that next community day that I went to, after being on Lexapro for a while, I was like, I'm still scared. I still have that feeling of being trapped, but I feel a lot better. And then the next community day, it was even better, if not almost completely gone. It was amazing. I didn't realize that life was supposed to be this way. But the sucky thing is, I still suffer from anxiety. I mean, medication isn't going to make it go away. That's just not going to happen. It's still going to be there. You're still going to have to work on it. I still deal with it every day. And I'm on what my primary care provider calls a high dose. But I'm only on 30 milligrams. And so, of course, you still have to work with it. And medication's not going to fix everything. But even on my anxiety medication, I still get test anxiety. I've gone to workshops. I've talked to my counselors. I've even talked to friends and a few family members of how I could deal with this. And no matter how many times I try to fidget cube or taking a stuffed animal with me to kind of just like give me comfort, or, you know, um, breathing right before the exam, my anxiety's always gone up. Even taking it in the testing center with extended time because of my new accommodations, I've had difficulties because even the testing center, the disability center, can't provide me accurate accommodations for what I need. And because of this, I have failed. In school, throughout elementary and middle school, I was like, I don't care if I get a C in this class. At least I'm passing and at least I'm getting by. And to be completely honest, a lot of people that I've spoken to think that way. And then there are the people who always get A's and their first B is like heart-wrenching to them. And sometimes I honestly can't believe it. I'm happy for them that, they're able to keep their grades up and everything like that and get A's continuously and just be able to excel. But at the same time, I look at them and kind of judge them a little bit because it's like a B is not that big of a deal. I've gotten C's all my life and I've passed just fine. And I think my view on that changed when I got my first D. It was a philosophy class. It was logic. in community college. So it was the first time my GPA actually dropped down a bit. It wasn't hard to grasp, and I spoke to the teacher constantly. But when it came to the exams, I could not figure it out. I could not access those files in my brain. The first time I noticed my testing anxiety was when I was in Shaolin, also known as Kung Fu, Chinese martial arts. And I was third degree brown, which is just a rank below first degree black belt. And I had to test for my Tai Chi patch. Every first degree black belt has it, and I believe that you're supposed to get it before you go to black belt, or at least you're supposed to have it by the time you're first degree black. I'm not sure. I don't really remember 100%. But anyway, that day I was testing for Tai Chi, and the black belt who is testing me, his name is Derek. He's like, "Do you want to go ahead and run over the form really quick before your test? Like, do you want to warm up? Do you want to practice?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I led him through the entire practice without even realizing it. I did step by step, form by form, perfect timing, in and out, like the breathing, everything. And I didn't mess up once. And he said that that was a perfect score. That would have been a perfect score if it were on a test. He didn't. He kind of said that, but he also mostly like pointed out, "Wow, you really know what you're doing." And after a couple of minutes, he was like, "Are you ready for your test now?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And I was confident. I was about 15 at the time, I think. But as I bowed in and started to do my Tai Chi form, I started to freeze. And I started to panic. And I started getting stuck on almost every single movement. Or maybe I'd remember 3 movements and then pause. God, I remember that like it was yesterday. I can see myself looking in the mirror that we're standing in front of, and my gaze looking back at Derek to see if he was going to do the next step. Of course, he wasn't doing it with me. He was holding his clipboard and watching me do it, but he would kind of like remind me of the steps in the mirror. And slowly, so painstakingly slowly, I got through the Tai Chi form, messing up over and over. I think I had to restart it 3 different times just so I could try and, grasp what I just lost. And as the end of the form came, and by the way, you need a specific score in order to get your patch, just like in order to get your next belt, you need that specific score. And I was terrified that I wasn't going to get it. But when I finished my form, finally, I looked over at him, or I went up to him, and he's like, "Not bad." And then he kind of like talked to me about my like why I was messing up a bit, and I just told him that I was nervous. And he said, "You did so well on the practice, on our warm up, and you didn't mess up once. You didn't need me for guidance. You did so well that I'm going to call that your exam and give you 100, which was 75.5. That was a perfect score. I remember how elated I was. I was so happy and I was so thankful to Derek. Derek, if you're hearing this right now, thank you. Thank you so much. That that was the most amazing feeling I've ever had in my life that I can recall at the moment, because even though I did poorly on the evaluation, on the exam, I did well enough for him to know that I knew exactly what I was doing. And I just really want to thank you for that. Other people, Raleigh was another one. He helped me learn my tiger form when I was blue belt. The people at that place, I was there from the age of 12 up until I was about 16 when I started high school. They are amazing people. They boost your confidence and talk to you about what you could do just a little bit better or what was spot on. And they didn't judge you for it. They didn't get mad at you and say, no, you got to do it again or anything like that. It was just, imperfections are fine. And here's just a way that you can improve. But thank you, Raleigh. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Master Derek. Thank you, Master David and Master Sharon. Everyone that I know at that place who I'm still friends with on Facebook, thank you. Matt, you made an amazing impression on my life. Like, you were just so friendly. You were like the older college dude who was like really nice and fun to spar with. I'm rambling, but it's my podcast, so I can do that. But back to the point. Actually, back to the point after this final thank you. Thank you, everybody who I went to Shaolin with that used to be located off of 38th and Perry, which is now located off of somewhere of, I think, 82nd or 84th in Washington, or 70 something in Washington. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. But now back to the topic at hand. The main topic that I'm recording this tonight without my fellow co-host, without Sava. In 2016, to give you guys a bit more of a background again, in 2016, August 1st, my grandma, who raised me since I was 2 years old, passed away. She passed away from colon cancer. I watched her pass away. I watched her release that last breath. And that was kind of the day my optimistic life ended. I was 17 years old, going on 18 later on in the month. And at the time, I believed in God. I was raised non-denominational, between Christian and kind of Catholic. And I remember just begging him to not let my grandma die and to cure her. It didn't happen. But, you know, I believe things happen for a reason. I do believe that. Or at least I try to remember that I believe that. as much as I possibly can. But on that morning of August 1st, 2016, I watched her pass away. After laying in this crappy hospital bed that they brought over from the hospice that she stayed in before they transferred her over to my house, our house. And right after that, I became extremely depressed. I remember one day it was 95 degrees, 95 to 70, 95 to 97 degrees outside Fahrenheit. And I was so cold. I had my uncle turn on the heater in the car when we were driving, turned on the heater, pointed at me full blast while I was wearing a long sleeve shirt. This was maybe a week or two after her passing. It's hard to go through something like that. Anyway, I went down into depression. This was my second semester back at the community college that I had just started to attend. And I didn't know what to do. I'd wake up, force myself to eat a protein cookie because sometimes that was the only thing I could get down because I didn't want food anymore. So I'd get up, get ready, go to school, come home, force myself to eat a protein cookie, go to bed, and repeat. And then I met an old friend of mine. His name was Nick. In September of 2016. And he was in one of my classes. He introduced me to the game room, a place that I had so very often wanted to go into, but because of my anxiety, I avoided at all costs. But because of him, I stepped into that game room and I made friends with two other people that I absolutely thank for being my friends. Todd and Q. I met Q first, because Q kind of hung around with Nick a bit. And he taught me how to play chess. I learned how to play ping pong in the game room. I won a few games of pool. It was a great time. But after meeting Nick and after meeting Q and going to the game room and hanging out, I noticed myself starting to have more fun. Starting to be happier a bit again. Because, I don't know, I was just kind of out there a bit more. And I started going home later and later every night. Go home at 6:30 instead of right after my class. I'd go home at 7. I'd go home at 8. I think one time I even got home by 10 o'clock at night. And one time I wasn't home until like 11:30 or midnight because of a Halloween party that our college had. It wasn't a party, it was more of like a trick or treat inside the halls of the community college. But I was out that late. And I had fun. I felt free. And every time I would go back home, I would feel so depressed and so down. So I started staying away from that house more and more. I ended up living with my friend Nick. and then he ended up taking up a lease of one of his friends for his apartment for his rent. So I moved back into my grandma's house, moved in with another friend, moved out of that house and back into my grandma's house. And during this time, I was doing okay in school. I was taking classes that honestly didn't have a lot of exams, and I eventually got my Associate of Arts degree in 2017? 2018. Yeah. Yeah. And then last year, I had to move back into my grandma's house. 15 credit hours, spring semester, first semester at a university. Biggest mistake. If any of my listeners out there are high school, getting ready to go to college, I cannot tell you enough. Go to a community college. It's cheaper, it'll save you a lot more money, and it prepares you for university. And never, ever take more than 12 credit hours. My friend Todd has his own podcast. It's called Thoughts of the Modern Viking. And in it, he talks about time and how it's mostly a construct of what we think we need. Like, every adult in your life is telling you that you need to get married by this time, have a job by this time, graduate school by this time. And I agree with Todd. Do it on your own time. It doesn't need to happen right away. No matter how much you think it needs to happen right away, it definitely does not, because you've totally got time. I'm only 22, going on 23, and I feel like I'm almost running out of time, even though I haven't even really started life yet. So, just a pre-warning for those almost there college students, be careful, because I've done it. At my community college, I took between 14 and 17 credit hours almost every semester, except for the last 3 semesters before I graduated. And I suffered major burnout. So major that I even wanted to drop out of school a few times because I thought I couldn't do it. So last year, middle of the spring semester, first time at a university, 15 credit hours, and I convinced my family that we need to sell my grandma's house because I could not live there anymore. I was tired of being depressed. I was tired of being down and out. And so we did. The house sold in late March, and we had to get out by, I think it was the second week of April officially. So I moved in with my best friend of 6 years. I moved in with my friend Nathaniel, who's also now my boyfriend. And I'm still living with him and his family. And I've been in a better place mentally and emotionally than I think I honestly ever have been in my life. I'm going to be completely honest. And I will also say that some of that is because of the counseling. But when I moved, my grades started to kind of suffer. I was really good with my homework and turning in my assignments on time. I had a B in a lot of my classes. except for chemistry. Found out foundations of general chemistry, no matter how easy it seems, it is actually kind of hard. So I failed in that class. And no matter what you think, your GPA does not automatically start out with a 3.0. Your GPA starts out at 0 and goes up from there with how many classes you succeed or don't succeed within that time. And so my GPA was 1.8. So in the fall semester of 2019, I had to, I of course took lesser credit hours. I went down to 12 and I worked my butt off. And that's the main reason right now for what I'm trying to talk about. I had B's in every single one of my classes, so close to A's. But every time I took an exam, no matter the type of accommodation that I tried to work out with my teacher, I failed. Some were better than others, but I still failed. I still got roughly maybe a C on my exams, if not a D on my exams. And I watched throughout the school semester as my grades slowly plummeted. But then I brought them back up with my assignments and my homework. But then came time for the final exam. And in the final exam, I knew that if I didn't do well enough on that final exam, that my grades would not be good anymore. And so for my stats and research methods class, I got a C minus. For my other two classes that I can't even remember which I took anymore, I got C's. And my GPA basically stayed the same. 1.8. So for spring of 2020, I had to write an appeal form to FAFSA and tell them what I would be doing. I think it's called probation. Yeah, I think I'm on academic probation. And with academic probation, you can't take more than 7 credit hours. And that's what I'm at, which is also the minimum. The minimum requirement for work study is 6, so I'm pretty golden. But if it weren't for those exams, I would have been fine. And that's what I want to fight. As I become more of an adult, I guess, as I go through my education more and more. So the main thing that started this all was I recently went to an internship workshop at my school. So I could do an internship for my degree. One, because it's required, because I decided to go for a Bachelor's of Science degree. And two, because it'll apply to what I want to do in the future. I work for a place called the Center for Identity and Inclusion, also known as CII. And when I first started working there, I realized we do a lot with identity. Obviously, it's in the name. We have Asian American Student Services, Black Student Services, American Indian Student Services, um, undocumented student services. And I'm also a part of the Multicultural Biracial Student Alliance, also known as MBSA. So we do a lot of stuff regarding identity, allowing people to connect to one another and learn more about each other, make friends, and thrive in a school environment. But the main thing that we don't touch on are disabilities, which is still an identity. I am autistic. That is my identity. It is part of who I am. It dictates actually a lot of how I communicate with people, how I sound when I talk, how I sound when I respond, how I look when I respond, how I look on a day-to-day basis. It's just part of who I am. And so when I started working there, I spoke to my supervisor and I said, autism is an identity. Can I do something with that? And he told me yes. And that was when something that I didn't know was inside of me flourished. I started thinking of things I could do for the website because I'm a website developer. I started to uh, think of ways that I could do something in this office. Weighted blankets, perhaps, maybe stim toys, fidget toys, stuffed animals. Because when I was having my own kind of breakdown throughout school, I needed something like a stuffed animal. Stuffed animals I can use. I like to hug them. They'll sit with me while I do my homework. Sometimes I need that, and sometimes other people need that too. Or sometimes people need something to play with, keep their hands in motion. Sometimes people really need to feel that weight. And so my supervisor, his name is James. Hi James, if you're listening to this. Told me that I should talk to DRS, the Disability Resources Center, and see if they had anything too, and if they would like to collaborate. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So, DRS said yes, that they'll collaborate with us. However, last semester was hectic because I had a lot of stuff to do with the website. This semester so far is hectic because I have a lot to do with the website. We're changing platforms and it's going big. So I thought over the summer I could collaborate with DRS and we could work out resources and talk about having these weighted blankets and fidget/stim toys and stuffed animals within CII and within DRS, because DRS doesn't even have those recommendations or those resources either. I played with a slinky once from their office, and it was kind of fun, but it didn't help with me needing to feel secure. So I spoke with James and asked him if I could do an internship at CII over the summer, especially since it could count for credit since it's in my degree field. He said yes, and I met with my internship advisor today. And because my GPA isn't at the greatest place right now, she said that I should go ahead and write an appeal letter to the dean. And just because it's never too late or never too early to appeal, because it'll take a while for my grades to come in, and there's a certain sign up time that you can start signing up for summer classes and all that fun stuff. So she told me to write an appeal. And so I did. And I sent it out today. shortly after my meeting with her. And at 6:47 in the evening, 18:47 for 24 hour, I got an email back. And all of the information that I gave to you about my background in shorter terms, so I do apologize for those who heard me ramble, in very shorter terms, I gave the exact same reason or explanation to the dean. I'm not going to use it as an excuse. There is no excuse. But she wrote me back and said, "Thank you for your email. As a matter of process, I like to consult with your Psych BS facility advisor before I make a final decision. I would appreciate your patience with me. I have read your appeal letter, and I'm very empathetic to your loss and your experience. However, it is rare for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences to approve an internship for academic credit when students are not in good academic standing, and especially when students' academic standing requires a semester grade point average of 2.3 or higher for students to continue their enrollment in the next semester/term. It would be helpful to learn more about the timing of your request to enroll in internship for academic credit given your current academic standing. Your appeal letter offers some insight about your strategies to help you be successful. It will be helpful to learn more about how you are currently doing in your courses, and I will offer that you must have a B+ or higher grades in each class to bring you back into good standing. I will be hopeful you will have a strong academic performance this semester. I acknowledge you have experienced some difficult times since your grandmother passing, and you have established some positive support systems on campus through the DSR and CII that have contributed to your enthusiasm and commitment to your academic goals and career aspirations. Please feel free to offer any additional feedback to further your support and appeal. And to be completely honest, I was kind of hoping that, I would be approved. Foolish, yes, most likely. I know. But it still hurt me when I received that email. It's not the end of the world, and I can always do an internship later. But it still really hurt. And to be completely honest, the main thing that I thought about today was what I want to do is help people who are like me that can't take tests. As explained earlier in my ramble about my Tai Chi test, I do better when I can just talk to someone. And I also figured that out with my friend Q later on as well. Again, when I was working with him on some math problems during my math course. And I was talking to my boyfriend about it earlier tonight on our way home from school. I want to be that person that can create a difference within education systems. We should teach how kids learn. And, like, I'll try to articulate this as best as I can, but when I was talking to my boyfriend earlier tonight, I said that I would love to make a department for kids in elementary, middle school, into high school, and even into college, where you have like a specific advisor. and you have that IEP, I think it's called, um or the personal academic thingy. I think it's called an IEP. Anyway, yeah, individualized education plan. Um, but they have an IEP with you, and you have a meeting once a week. Um, and what they do is they so it's an office. It can be its own office, and it has different people and different kinds of like fields of study. I'm using quotation marks depending. Um, and you have like a science advisor and all this different kind of stuff. But you get assigned to one person for whatever class you're struggling in, and they kind of touch base with you and talk to you, kind of like a tutor, but a little bit different. They're a little bit more personal than a tutor. And um, the way that it would work for someone like me who has severe testing anxiety, it would go something like this. Like, you walk into their office and you sit down, you start talking to each other back and forth, and they say, "What do you think about this exam that's coming up for your class? What do you think about that?" "Oh, I feel okay. I'm not nervous yet. I think I understand everything. The teacher gave us this study guide," and stuff like that. And so maybe your advisor says something like, "Oh, I'm going to take notes so that way I can help you study later." But instead of notes, he has open, he or she has open your exam. And say you pull out the study guide, like with all of the words on it that you haven't written down the definitions for yet, because that's what professors give you in college. And you look at it and you're like, "Yeah, we're gonna this is our list," and you show it to your advisor and they say, "Oh yeah, oh this is interesting." And then they see something related on your exam and say, "Tell me about this. What does this mean?" And you would say, "Oh, I know exactly what that means." And then you just rattle it off. Or you talk to them about it. Like what photosynthesis is, or um, the powerhouse of the cell is, or, you know, just anything that your exam is on, depending on what class you're in. Yeah, what Sigmund Freud was, what he did, and how he was developing, how he was deemed as the father of psychology by a lot of people, um, that kind of thing. And then at the end of all of that, your advisor goes, maybe this is probably like an hour's worth of a meeting. It can go pretty fast when you're just talking about stuff like that. Anyway, your advisor will go, "Well, I think you've got this exam in the bag. It sounds like you've done a pretty good job." And you're like, "Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. But I'm still a bit nervous because I'm not that good at taking exams." And then he can say, "Well, I think you're going to do a really good job because you just took the exam." Do you know how easy life in school would have been for me had I done something like that? Had something like that been provided for me? I've tried going to teachers, I've tried going to advisors and saying, "Hey, I think this might be a good way to learn. Can you help me find resources?" And I've always heard the same thing. "No, I don't have anything for you, but maybe you can find something and work towards it yourself." Gee, thanks. But can you imagine how nice that would be? Something like that? Or, someone else who doesn't work exactly like me, they can do it another way. Maybe they're visual and they're doing their math homework and they're in like 4th grade and they're learning fractions, and it's like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing, I'm afraid I don't understand, and then your advisor just, I have a whole theory about it. But if I can implement this, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to make it easier for people like me with any kind of disability to be able to have something that does not force them to conform to neurotypical standards. That's what I want. That's what I'm going to strive to do. Because I personally do not think that it is fair that I have to suffer for not being a good test taker. That my GPA has to suffer for me not being a good test taker. I did my homework. I got good grades. But at the end of the semester, it's always about that exam. And that is something I want to change. I feel like as long as you can prove that you're knowledgeable and that you know the topic well, then you should get a good grade. It is now 23:01, also known as 11:01 p.m., and I have school and work tomorrow. So that is the end of my rambling for tonight. Thank you to everybody who has listened. Thank you again to everybody who has helped me throughout my life. I greatly appreciate you. And if you guys want a really cool podcast of someone who shares his thoughts and opinions, listen to my friend Todd. He's Thoughts of the Modern Viking on Spotify. Thanks again for listening. I hope everybody has a good night. Talk to you later. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to our podcast. Actively Autistic is directed and produced by me, Gabriella Jade, and co-produced by Sava. Original music is created by me as well and can be found on our social media at some point in the future.